Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to our waning coverage of Day 2 of MUFON Symposium here in Covington, Kentucky. We have with us right now Teri Lygne-Kehl. She is a member of MUFON. She's a MUFON representative. What do you let the audience know exactly what you do with MUFON?
Okay. Well, let's see. I'm on the board of directors, and I am a former state director of Florida MUFON. I'm now living in Paris, Tennessee, and I'm the director of memberships, and I am also working with MUFON University as their consultant.
Awesome.
And so, I got my hands in a couple different fires.
a few fingers with pies going on. And, the reason I wanted to have you on is because of your heavy involvement with MUFON. I love all of the work that MUFON does, but you are also, you have a long lineage of contact within your family as well, which was a topic that we were talking about earlier, the idea that it seems that experiences tend to run in familial lines. It's really, really interesting.
And it is a very interesting subject. I don't pretend to be an expert on it because there are so many variables involved.
Yeah.
However, yes, there's been 70 years, and it started with my oldest brother, and he's much older than I am. He was from my mother's first marriage. So when he was 9 years old, and he's passed away, at 76, and that was a few years back. He had someone show up and literally speak to him, and he didn't even know who this person was, and say, at 9 o'clock tonight, and at this park, there is going to be a ship. Well, okay, and that was back in the 40s. Okay, and
wow.
And he, my first thought while he was sharing this with me was, oh my gosh, he's going to be abducted by a pedophile or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first thing that comes to your mind in 2023. Well, he told me this in 2020. And I thought, oh, yeah. Well, he went to the park, and sure enough, this ship showed up, and he had this moment. And he doesn't know if he had missing time. He doesn't know what happened. But he said it was absolutely just like the man said. And I'm like, what man? Phil, why would you listen to that?
Interesting,
And he said, I don't even know why I listened. He said somebody had seen a craft in our neighborhood while we kids were all playing. And the guy that was there said the craft will be at the park. As crazy as that sounds, that's what happened. So that was my brother Phil's experience. And then my mother, who owned a houseboat, used to like to rent her house out to this friend of hers that was a Canadian for 3 months out of every year. And she would get on her houseboat, she'd tool around in the Gulf of Mexico, and her husband would throw over anchor, and they would, hang out all these different little porticals all over, up and down the west coast of Florida. And even go into the dry Tortugas and stuff like that. They were both divers.
Okay.
And she said what shocked her was when they first started doing this, they were seeing these USOs shoot right up out of the water, not even making barely a ripple. She said they came up clean, and all of a sudden there it would be, and it would hover. She said they were green cylinders, and she said it was like nothing she could have ever even imagined. Remarkable. And then it would just hover and then just go, and she said it was gone so fast. They would both look at each other like, did we see that? What did we just see?
Yeah.
And for the longest time, they really didn't even know what they were looking at, because my mother wasn't into UFOs of any type.
Well, and especially, the traditional shape of a UFO is not a cylinder.
Right.
There are numerous sightings of them, but
green. And hovering over the water, coming out of the water. Okay, so this was all new to her back in the 60s.
Yeah.
Okay, and she did this through the 60s and the 70s. Now, I had my first experience with extraterrestrials in 1979, so I was in the 70s. My brother was in the 40s, my mom in the 60s, me in the 70s. And I'm coming home from work one night and then hovered over a railroad track just outside of our area where my home was. I see this UFO, and it's just hovered there. And I'm thinking to myself, no way, no way, no way. Now, here's what's interesting, too. At this point, I didn't know about my brother's exposure. I did not know about my mother's exposure.
Okay.
That night, I had my experience. There were two crafts, one that was over the railroad tracks, but unbeknownst to me, there was also one landed to the right of me. And the one that had landed was the one that this big, huge blue light came out of. It was the most powerful light blue I'd ever seen. And back in 1979, we didn't have fiber optics or anything like that. So, here's this extraterrestrial standing in this light. And he was a tall white. Never heard of him, didn't know anything about him, didn't believe in him. I really believed all my life that extraterrestrial stuff and all that was comic book entertainment.
Sure.
So for me to actually see it, and being a Christian, I was like, you got to be kidding me, So I lived through the moment. I was taken aboard that one ship by that tall white. I saw two small grays who were assisting him on me, had missing time. After it was all over, I'm giving you the quick Reader's Digest of a very long experience. And after it was all over and they had taken off, I stood there, not the same girl that went into the craft, but now I was begging them to stay or take me. And I'm like, now how do you go from being an unbeliever to being an instantaneous believer and devotee? And I'm like, why am I begging? I was literally standing there crying.
Wow.
And I thought, now this is really cool.
Were you afraid when your experience started?
I was very afraid.
Okay.
But the craft comforted me. And it was so beautiful, so powerful. And the blue light that was going across the one that was hovered over the railroad tracks, there was something in that blue light that was just so relaxing, or it was speaking to me somehow. Of course, at the time, I didn't realize that. I can look back now and understand it, but at the time, I became so curious. And so, here I am looking at it, and the fear did leave me, but when I saw the tall white, I was absolutely stunned. I mean, I didn't even know how to wrap my head around that. And fear was just a small part of that equation, But anyhow, when they left, here I am crying and begging. And then the cool part was I'm listening to David Paulides yesterday, okay, because he was one of our speakers here, our keynote speaker. I was blown away when he said that someone hadn't been taken simply because they had a vasectomy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? What kind of craziness is that? Okay. You know why they didn't take me when I'm standing there crying and begging them to take me? I'd had a hysterectomy.
Wow. Wow.
It hit me while I was listening to David.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's why they didn't take me.
Unviable donor.
Yes.
Interesting.
And I'm thinking, oh my God. And the whole time I remember saying right out loud, I said, aren't I good enough? Why aren't you taking me? And I was begging them to take me, and they didn't take me. So now I know why.
Yeah.
Right here today, 2023, I finally figured it out thanks to David Paulides.
Well, and it's interesting the fact that you've been in this field for a long time.
Yeah.
Lynn.
Yeah.
Or Teri, and to know that you just now stumbled upon that realization.
Yeah.
And that goes to show, though, that don't stop exploring your experience.
Right.
Never stop exploring your experience and what it means, why it happened, why you weren't chosen. Things like that.
Exactly. And now I know I was chosen to have the experience.
Yeah.
And while I was on that craft, let me go back to the experience itself. While I was on that craft to the right that had landed with the tall white and the two grays, He looked down and spoke to me, the tall white, and through mental telepathy said, in a male voice, which is interesting, male voice, "We will not harm you. We will not take you." And I thought, take me? Take me where? So he was telling me, right then and there, we're not taking you.
Yeah.
So what do? I'm begging and crying and pleading with him to take me. And I'm like, my head and my heart were like, what are you saying? Shut up. Why are you begging them to take you? This is absurd. And now I know why they didn't.
Yeah.
And yet he had told me that right straight away. So I must have passed out on that table that they put me on in this all white room. The walls were white, the floors were white, a very soft white glow. The ceiling was white, everything was white, every bit of it wasn't furniture, it was a table. And it was glowing. It had a glow to it. And it's just all, to me, hard to wrap my head around, even still to this day. It changed everything about who I was and how I felt and what I knew and what I believed. And now here I am at this age, just finding out, it's still unveiling. I'm still getting it. It's crazy.
We were talking earlier about the concept of ontological shock and how that sets in and how I talk to a lot of experiencers, Teri, and beyond the world of UFO, UAP.
Right.
Paranormal, cryptids, things like that.
Right, I've been there.
I don't know of a single one where it started out good.
Yeah, it's always so bizarre.
People come to terms with their experience. But I know very few experiencers where they were not either frozen in fear, frozen in indecision, frozen in disbelief.
Yes.
And where afterward it did not shake their foundation in some way, shape, or form.
No, it actually increased my faith, and it increased my understanding. It increased my knowledge base of what was going on. Although I didn't get it fully, I'm no expert on these subjects, but I didn't get it fully. I don't know why things happened the way they did. But this I do know. We are spiritual beings on a human journey. And this human journey here on this planet has many open doors. It really, really does. Yeah. And depending on your life and your experiences, which door will open and how it will open. And because I've been an experiencer since I was 5 years old, not necessarily with extraterrestrials, but with the paranormal realm. And I've gone through a demonic time where I saw, full-bodied apparitions, okay? That is not normal stuff. Yeah. And it's very hard to live through that because it's so frightening and so mind-boggling.
One of the experiences I talk about regularly on the show was one of them that led me to a crisis of faith.
Yes.
I was a former seminarian, all kinds of things, taught theology studies, all kinds of stuff to youth, adults. Yeah. But the day, again, I saw a shadow person. It was weird.
Seen that.
It was freaky.
Yeah.
But the day one grabbed me in my bed, Teri.
Okay, that would make a difference.
That was when my crisis came.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, I had like full on religious experience. That is what led me into the seminary.
Yeah.
And thank God that the man who wore the collar that I went to after Mass and was like, "Father, I just had this really weird thing happen in the middle of Mass." And I told him, like, I was not there.
Yeah.
I was somewhere else.
Right. They have ways of transporting us.
And fortunately, I had a very open-minded, open-hearted priest who was like, "Chris, you should probably explore that. If you feel you were called by God, you should explore that. You should look into that. And if you need some help, you let me know."
What'd you do?
I explored entering the seminary, and I actively entered the seminary and studied to be a priest for a year and all kinds of things. It led me down a different road.
Yeah.
But that experience with the shadow person was a stealing of my faith in a totally different way. And I think it was because of the latent fear that was there. where it's not that I hadn't been told about, there's evil things stalking your soul around every corner.
Very true.
It's a different thing when something grabs you.
That's right.
And you can't move, you can't respond, you can't speak. That was a very, very, still to this day, visceral experience for me. And I've had numerous experiences of sleep paralysis.
Right.
It's the only one where something popped out of the wall and it grabbed me. And it changed me. It changed the paradigm in which I live, how I view the world, and how I interact.
Did it rob
with
your
experiencers?
faith?
No.
Good.
It made my faith stronger.
Good.
And that was even after telling the priest, like, hey, man, I've got a sincere crisis of conscience here. Like, you are asking me to accept upon faith spectral evidence.
Right.
And when presented evidence of the spectral, you have no faith.
You have questions.
and that is a big logical barrier for me to leap.
Absolutely. And
not faith-wise, but logically, I cannot reconcile that.
Right. Right.
And I still talk to my God. I still experience spirituality on a daily basis. I don't really go to a church a whole lot. I'll say that, but not open to the experience. I'm just called in a different way now.
Exactly. I don't think that there is a certain way that we all are called. Every one of us is different. Everything about our lives are unique to us. And we don't share that uniqueness with each other. Are we all created the same?
In a base way, sure.
In a base way.
Yeah, we've all got the same $13 of chemicals inside of us.
That's right. But mentally, spiritually, and physically, we are not all alike.
Absolutely not.
And I used to hear people say, we were all created identical, and I thought, well, I wasn't.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
But it was just me questioning that theology and what they were teaching. And I knew beyond any shadow of any doubt, I am definitely not like that person. And it's all our mental and spiritual life. You know, I might look like you with two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, but we all function very differently and at different levels.
Yep.
Yeah,
we all process reality through different filters.
Completely different.
And that is all experiential. I say it on the show regularly that is why two people in the same place, one person can witness and one person doesn't.
Right, exactly.
In the exact same situation.
In the exact same.
Why two people brought up in the same house. You talk to my brother.
Totally different.
We were both brought up by the same single mother who worked 2 jobs and went to college.
Yeah. And you're nothing
we have
alike.
Totally different experiences within that home.
Yes.
And that's just it. Now, with your experience, with your numerous experiences with ETs at this point, what was it like for you to find out from your mother and your brother that they'd had experiences that they had never told you about?
Right. Getting back to that, my mother, that night after I had seen in 1979 the craft and the extraterrestrials, and they had left, I stood in the middle of the road outside of my little Honda Civic with my head in my hands going, oh my God, I need to speak to somebody who loves me and somebody who knows me and knows I'm not nuts. Okay. Yeah. And I thought, who? Well, who else?
Mom.
My mom. So I thought it was like 2:30 at night because that's when this all started. And I didn't know about missing time, so I didn't know that I had missing time. So I get to her house, I knock on the door. Her husband comes and says, Terry, what are you doing here so early in the morning? I'm like, morning? You're sound asleep. It's 2:30 at night. He goes, Terry, it's 4 a.m. And I went, what?
Wow.
And I went, oh, he's so tired. He doesn't even know what time it is.
Poor old man.
And I thought it was him.
Wow.
I actually thought he was nuts. And nothing clued me in that it was 4 a.m. because, it's always your darkest hours before the light,
Yeah.
And so it was pretty dark out. And my mom heard me at the door and she goes, come on in, what's going on? And I go, Mom, pour the coffee. I got to tell you what happened to me. So she listens to the whole thing, and she's sitting about as close to me as you are right now. And after I tell her my whole experience, she puts her hand on my knee, and she's kind of doing this, and she says, "It's okay, Ter. I've seen them too." I jumped off the couch, looked at her in the eyes. I was 27 years old, and I said to her these words, "I am 27 years old, and you didn't prepare me for this? How could you do that to me? How could you not let me know?" And she just was like shocked, like, "What are you so upset about?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding what I just went through? I just blew my mind. Yeah. I'm trying to deal with this, Mom. Why didn't you prepare me?" And that's when she said, "Well, Ter, when I rent the house out, to her girlfriend up in Canada, and we go out on the houseboat, this is what happened." And she shared it with me. And I was trying to be kind and understanding, but I was so angry because I thought, geez, if I'd have had a clue that this stuff is even real, I might have been able to wrap my mind around it. I said, I just made a fool of myself, begging and screaming and crying for them to take me. And they didn't take me, and I don't know why they didn't take me. And she was like, "Whatever you do, don't share this with anybody." She was in management at Honeywell Aerospace. I had been working at Honeywell as a secretary along with my sister Chris. And my mom said, "Teri, if anybody finds out what you're talking about here, they're going to label you an absolute kook case." And I'm like, okay, I'll never say anything. And I didn't until 29 years later. And I had like somewhat of a screen memory of it, but it almost disappeared in my thoughts. I never thought about it again. 29 years later, I'm sitting at home, and boom, I hear an audible voice say, "Go to the computer, report your sighting." Like it just happened 29 years earlier. And just like that, I knew exactly what it was talking about. So I got up, I went to the computer, and, well, I don't even know how to do that. Report a UFO. Up comes MUFON, and the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. And what an incredible story of coming to work with MUFON. And not just that, but coming to the awareness of MUFON.
Right. I didn't know there was anything like this. And I want to say this. I am so grateful for MUFON, because where would you go to say, this happened to me? Yeah. And you can go to a lot of places, but nobody does what MUFON does.
That's right.
We are the boots on the ground. We investigate what happened. We are here to reassure you, to walk you through that experience, help you know what happened to you. Yeah. And you're not crazy. Well, this has happened to millions of others.
Exactly. And it's also the fact of, you've got the team in place to help respond as well to the victim side of it.
That's right.
Which is, I think, what has been ignored for a long, long time.
Yes.
There's been a few agencies, NICAP, things like that are still around, but MUFON, I think, has had the most cohesive intake of information since the day that they said, "This is our process."
Right.
It has been the process. Right. There have been a couple things, tool-wise, technology-wise, that have been added to said process.
Right.
But it starts the same way all the time, every time. Starts with a witness report.
Right.
Goes from a witness report to, let's get an investigator there. Let's find physical evidence. Let's look at pictures, things like that. It's remarkable. It's great. It
is. It really is. And we have a passion here for helping.
Yep.
It is what we're all about. We are the oldest and largest UFO reporting agency in the world. There are others, but they don't do anything.
And fully volunteer.
They just take your information and hang on to it.
Yeah.
We're using this for stats. We're learning so much about what's out there, what has happened to you, how it's happened to you. There are so many connections that we make with that person who reports. And most of the people who report want to be a part of us. So, they join and become members, and that's a wonderful thing. And, I love it because I'm meeting people like you.
Same.
I mean, I'm meeting people like all these other people that are here, speakers. I'm a speaker this year talking about my alien healing from 2012. And I'll be doing that tomorrow. So if anybody's out there listening to us and you want to hear all about that, come on down.
Yeah, well, let's get into your alien healing real quick, because that is something that we've talked about regularly on the show. It's something that we've talked about with Kathleen Martin whenever we've had her on. The idea that when people come back, they seem to be physiologically changed.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're talking close encounter.
Yeah.
When you're talking abduction, when you're talking being present with the craft.
Right.
And
those are close encounters.
Yeah.
And they're life-changing.
Yeah.
Every facet of what you experience takes you deeper into the understanding, the knowledge, and sometimes the fears, but also the victory of it all. And you get comfortable with it after a while. If somebody showed up right now, with me, like tonight, or if I was alone, or even if I was a group of people, I'd be okay with that, because I understand things now that I never could have back in 1979. I have wrapped my mind around the entire concept of extraterrestrials are real.
Yeah.
They're created, but not in our image. We're created in the image of God.
Sure.
They're not. But neither are horses or cats or
angels.
Or angels. Well, angels are pretty much in their image, even the fallen angels.
Sure.
But they can morph, they can change.
Yeah.
God's angels don't morph or change. They are who they are, but they can if he wanted them to. They can be there and then not there.
Sure.
I've seen that with my own two eyes. My experiences have opened a myriad of other doors. And at my age now, I'm happy to walk through those doors, because we are spiritual beings on a human journey. And this humanity that we have, that we possess, I want to know everything about it. And I want to know how to pack my bags to go to the next level as well.
Yeah.
So I want to know what happens here. What do I need to understand here? What do I need to know? I need to reach out and understand all these different facets of what's happening on this realm.
Yep.
Because once we leave this realm, I know a lot of people believe in reincarnation, and I don't know if that's ever happened to me before. I just don't know about reincarnation. Maybe I've been here. People call me an old soul. I'm like, well, maybe. I don't know.
Energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only change form.
It can change form. And do I choose to come here? Like I was talking with, Ray Seismansky this afternoon.
Yeah.
And he says we choose to come here.
Sure.
This is our choice. And I do have some strange screen memories about that, about being on a ship and sinking and dying and watching the people that were dead as I was also dying.
Wow.
And I watched underwater animals eating them, they became a food source once dead.
Sure.
And I saw that before I died. And I'm like, now, how could a little girl of 3 years old remember something like that? And I'm like, well, maybe there is reincarnation. Maybe the Lord does allow us to revisit this. Perhaps maybe if we were wicked or somehow evil, or we have to come back. And but I don't see it in the scriptures, so I don't understand it. So I can't talk with any knowledge about that because I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. I listen to others and I consider what they share.
Yeah.
And I'm interested.
Yep.
But I'm no expert. So
it's hard to be an expert about just about anything spiritual
anymore.
It's hard, because once again, that is a personal journey for each individual person. There are some capital T universal truths. But aside from that, it's all so individual, much like the UFO UAP experience. It is such an individual experience for each person. There are similarities among stories. There are common themes.
Yeah, but the stories are all so individual with each person. And one person might experience 10 things, while another just only one thing.
Yep.
And, I remember when I used to hear other people's stories, I'd go, that is so bizarre. And then one day I'm sitting at home going, so is my experience.
Yeah.
My experience is so stinking bizarre. I have a hard time relating to it. And then I thought, who am I to judge somebody else's experience. When I haven't walked in their shoes, I don't know what they experienced. I don't know what happened to them.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, you've had an experience with a shadow person that grabbed you. I've seen shadow people.
Yep.
They're blacker than black.
The first,
you know?
One of my first actual memories, Terry, I was about 3-4 years old.
Yeah.
We lived in a trailer
Interesting.
house over in East Houston. And we had a swing set between our property and the neighbor's property who I'd go like help gather chicken eggs, things like that. And I remember looking out the back window one day and seeing a dark figure next to the swing set who was beckoning to me.
Oh, wow. Did you tell your parents?
I don't know that I've ever told my mother or anything like that. I've told my brother about it. I've expressed the story numerous times on the show, but that is one of my most visceral memories from when I was a child.
Isn't that odd?
And, it's interesting to me that later one of my most visceral memories is also a dark shadow.
Yes.
You
so
know.
it was still with you, still beckoning you.
Could very well be.
Got tired of waiting
Could
and just
very well be.
grabbed you.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And but it's one of those, because of those experiences, I will forever believe the experiencer until proven otherwise.
Right. And that's where I finally came to, understand. Just listen.
Yeah.
Don't judge.
Yeah.
Don't try to figure their thing out. It's their thing to figure out, not yours. That's their walk, their life. Although many of us, like I identify with you because I've seen what you've seen. And I have an opinion on then what that was. And I do believe it was something from a darker realm reaching out to you.
Could very well be.
And it may have very well been to pull you off course.
Yeah.
And maybe it did for a season, but then you were able to find yourself back to where you needed to be. You were smarter because of the experience, and you were able then now to know, if I see something like that again, I'll have a different attitude towards it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm okay now with so many things. If I saw a demon, I'd rebuke it and bind it.
Sure.
If I saw a full-bodied apparition of something, I'd rebuke it and bind it. Other people say, well, they like to play with those entities and all that and ask them questions. Not me.
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
and
I want to go to the next level. I don't want to be in that lower realm where those things exist. And if they're coming at me, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to learn something.
And that is, I am not denying the work of Dr. Stephen Greer and CE5.
No. I've had CE5 experiences.
I know many people who have. I have yet to go to a group meeting or go to a
real.
gathering and see it in person. I would be very interested in that.
Well, we should do that sometime.
Absolutely. Well, one of the topics that we talk about regularly on the show, Terry, is the idea that is our reticent belief. Kind of like the idea of the original work of Hal Puthoff in the world of remote viewing. And when the scientist goes home and he's thinking about his experiment, he is affecting the experiment.
Yeah.
In the lab, things are changing because of his thinking about it.
I know.
And I guess part of my curiosity is, are we helping manifest some of these things? Are we? But when a group of people is preparing their equipment, because hey, when I'm packing my gear and stuff, I am thinking about my show. I'm thinking about my setup. I'm thinking about if I forgot anything.
Right.
Last time, this time, what am I going to do different? All that stuff. So, in your preparation, are you actively charging the space that you're going to investigate?
I believe you are.
And
I believe it all plays into it.
I think CE5 is more and more showing that really is the case. That is the case. And I'm one that I hold hope of hopes that all are friend.
Real.
That all are friend.
Yeah.
None are foe.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But man, even the conversation of.
But then you would create that as well. See, there you go. Because I would never receive anything negative. And they know that about me.
Yeah.
You know, it's more than consciousness. Okay.
Well, it's intent.
It's intent. There you
it's
go.
intent. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that. And that's what I was trying to relay today in the Screen Memories panel that I was on. I don't use psychedelics to create the moment, you know, like some people do.
Sure.
And I don't use, because those things can fog your understanding.
Absolutely.
I want to look at it with a clear, clean, wholesome mind. I want to understand it. I want to grow. And we create these intents. And when in my CE5 experiences, there would have been maybe 11 of us there. 5 of us saw.
The others
rest did not.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
exactly
now,
what I
how
talk
could
about
that
on the show all the
be?
time.
And so I'm thinking to myself, how can that be? And the other ones that saw with me saw exactly what I saw. We were all...
Were they previous experiencers?
Yes. They were all previous experiencers.
Everybody in the group was previous
Everybody
experiencers?
in the group came because they were...
Okay.
There were... I think there were... I take that back. 2 that were not, and they did not see.
Interesting, because that's one of the concepts that I hold is the fact that, especially those who have been in close contact.
Yes. Yeah.
Teri, we're talking a different world of physics and a different world of technology. The way I akin it is, if I hold the natural Earth magnet within an inch or 2 of my watch for a little while,
something's going to happen.
It will not work.
That's right.
They will permanently be magnetized now.
Right.
Until I demagnetize it. I can use an opposite field and flip that magnet over and reverse that. But I didn't have to touch the magnet to the metal to make it magnetic.
No.
It only has to be in the presence
close.
of the field to be permanently changed to magnetic.
Yes.
And I firmly believe that those who have had that extreme experience, that close encounter, that being in the craft, next to the craft, touching the craft, they are vibrationally changed. The same way that watch is, same way those gears become magnetic.
That's right.
We're talking about a whole new realm of physics here, man.
You are. And you're also talking about the fact that you've made a decision and a knowing, and now it's easy. It's having a deeper faith. You're having a faith in the fact that you know you've already walked through that.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's like people like Uri Geller who bend those spoons.
I have seen it happen.
Yeah.
I have seen it happen in front of my face.
Now, I've held a million forks and tried to bend them. I haven't gotten there yet, but once I have, never again would I doubt it. Never again would I have an issue with it.
Yeah.
So it's very much like that. And in the CE5 encounter we had that night, we were all looking south. Everybody, we had all these chairs, we had fans out because we didn't want to have mosquitoes eating us to death, so we had the fans blowing on us to keep the mosquitoes off us. So we're all heading in that direction, looking over that way. All of a sudden, I'm standing there, and I heard this voice say to me, "Turn around." And I turned around, and when I did, I looked up, and here comes this craft. And first I thought it was an airplane, okay?
Sure.
So I'm looking at it, and then I'm like, oh, that's a little too fast. And then, vroom, it dropped all the way down. Vroom, went all the way up. I'm like, that's not a plane. It made an N, vroom, all the way back down. And I'm like, guys, turn around. You know, and this happened very quickly. And everybody turned around, but 5 of us saw.
Wow.
Very clearly, vroom, 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 which would have killed a human being.
Yeah.
Could not have been one of ours.
Yeah.
No way. We don't have that technology. And if we do, man, I'm totally not aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that G5, though, would have killed a human. Okay. So there wasn't any of us, no humans were on board that. And so then it started going here. Orion's belt in the night sky was right there, and it went right in and gone.
Wow.
And we're all going, can you see it? Can you see it? No, I think it disappeared. I don't see it. I don't see it. Well, keep looking. Is it over there? You know, and it went right in. And I said, that went right into Orion's belt. Now, I can't even tell you how many times people have told me that on CE5s. when Orion's belt is visible like that, it just goes right into that belt.
Huh.
And I'm like, well, I never knew that. But
Interesting.
now I know it because I just watched it.
That is one of my favorite places to photograph in the night sky. So I will have to keep my eyes peeled. Teri, thank you so much for coming and taking the
Yes.
time to sit down. Your experiences are amazing. We've had a great time chatting over the last couple days. It's been great.
It is. It's fun.
Let everybody know how they can get involved, because once again, MUFON is a volunteer organization.
It
I
is.
cannot express that or emphasize that enough. As opposed to so many others that do this research, this is a fully volunteer thing.
It is.
Ain't nobody getting paid. And the funny thing is, when nobody's getting paid, pretty funny, they don't really follow paradigms from people that give them money. You know, it's kind of like the evening news where it's like, well, you know, I don't know if secret deodorant really jives with that story, so maybe we leave it out this segment.
Yeah, we're
you know?
all driven by our passions and
Yeah.
our understandings, current understandings, which are always changing. But thank you so much for having me on. I've really
absolutely.
enjoyed talking to you and meeting you and getting to know you and your beautiful wife.
Thank you.
This is
thank
awesome.
You. Absolutely. Let everybody here on the camera know where they can go to join MUFON, where they can go to become a field
Sure.
investigator,
Yes.
go for MUFON University when it
it's-
launches. My God, I can't wait for that
I know.
to launch.
I'm really looking forward to it.
How they can get involved with everything MUFON.
It's all in one place, MUFON.com. And right there will be our landing page, our main page, and there's drop-down boxes, join. And, you know, you have to go to MUFON University, you have to be a member. And then you also have to join to be a field investigator. And then we certify you, and you are certified. You do have a certification for going out, and we train you. We never let you go out on your own. We train you. You are then a part of MUFON University and move forward from there. And you can climb that ladder as high as you want to go.
Yeah.
And be, you know, a state director or maybe a chief investigator or a state section director. So, yeah, we'd love for you to join us. And if you want to reach out to me, if you've got any questions, I'm at DOM@MUFON.com. That's Director of Memberships, DOM@MUFON.com.
All right. Fantastic.
Thank you
Teri.
so much.
Absolutely,
This has been so
absolutely.
wonderful.
I love all my MUFON involvement. It's so fantastic.
Thank you.
While you are online checking out everything from MUFON.com, make sure to stop on by CuriousRealm.com. That is where you can find all of the episodes. That is where you can find all of the books from our guests. That's where you can find our experiencer form. If you're an experiencer of the paranormal, UFOs, cryptids, let us know. Give us your evidence. We will present it to our guests and experts and try to get you some answers. Stay with us through this next commercial break. We will have our last bit of coverage from MUFON. We'll be talking with Map in Black. Some really cool stuff when we come back from commercial break, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.